Okay, I don't know if you've seen that shot that I took of that panel with that divot in the top of it there. What I was doing was flush trimming that arch. I've got a jig set up that I clamp on there, and it flush trims that arch that I laid out there to go in those arch doors. And what I was doing was trimming that, and the jig moved. This is it right here. I'll show it to you in a minute. It moved and it got down on the router bit. It got off the bearing and down on the flush trim router bit. Well, when it done that, it went into the bit. There wasn't nothing to stop it. So the router bit cut into the door panel and it cut into the jig. So, you know, that's bad. I done carved it and glued the rest of the panel up, and it was ready to be raised. So I thought, wow, and that's on the end grain too. You know, how in the world am I going to get around this? So I pondered on it a little bit, and I come up with a fix. I'll show it to you. Start with this. This is my jig right here. It's just a clamp, and then it's got the template right here for the arch. You got one for the panel and then one for the rail. You just turn it over. And this thing was a flexing. I couldn't figure out why, but I did later on. But anyhow, when it flexed, it also got into the router bit. See, it cut a couple of places right here. I thought, wow, now that's some kind of plastic material. That ain't even plastic. I don't know what it is. Some kind of urethane or something. Anyhow, I said, well, so I go over to my lathe and I cut me out a couple of 1/2 inch plugs. That's a 1/2 inch flush trim bit, and it was just almost half of it. So I cut me out a plug on my lathe, turned it out there, and I glued that thing in. I glued that 1/2 inch plug in this template here with some CA glue, and let it set up real good. Sprayed some activator on it, let it set real good. Then I took my flush trim saw and sawed it off. Of course, then I took some sandpaper on a sanding block and sanded it smooth. Now it's good as it ever was. It's smooth across there as it ever was. So I thought, well, if I can do that, I can. I don't see why in the world I couldn't go ahead and do that to the door panel. So let me see if I can get around here and get the camera on where I fixed it. You can see it there a little bit. Right here, same way. I come in here and I took half of that dowel that I cut down on my lathe and I glued it in here. Of course, it was full profile then. It was 3/4 inch thick. So anyhow, I glued it in there, and when it glued right, I come trimmed it with my flush trim saw, and then I took the sander and sanded, got it good and smooth there. And then I went over there to the shaper where I got my panel razor in it, and I went and cut the profile on it. And you can see that glue, it held that thing right there in there, no problem. Here's the back side of it. I cut the profile on both sides of it, and it held those plugs in there. So anyhow, when we put the door together, this tongue will go up in the groove on the frame. The groove will come down here, and that little plug right there will be hid. It'll be in there, and just like it ever was, but the frame will come down on it here, and it'll hide that plug. You'll never see it. So that's how that's how we repaired that mistake. Okay, I'm gonna come back in this section of the video right here, just a little clip. If you remember, I had a place in one of the panels there where the form that I was using to arch the panels, it flexed and got down in the router bit, cut us out a big old 1/2 inch semicircle in the top of this panel. And this panel here is the one that it was. But you can see, maybe you can see. Let me get the camera a little bit closer here. Yeah, I can see. And this is the panel, so you can see there's no evidence of ever having any kind of repair or anything. That little semicircle plug that I glued in there is still in there after cutting the profile. So the glue held it. It's still there, and the hole's filled, but it's up in the door. We got a 3/8 groove from here to here in the door, and that's where that stuck up in there. So the hole is filled, just like it never happened, and you can't see any end grain where I put the plug in there. So that was just a little boo-boo. And believe it or not, that's and sometimes I find it hard to believe that's the only one that I had on this cabinet construction thing here. And just back around here where I can see. That's the one I have. Now, if anybody, like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and if anybody tells you that they don't make mistakes, there's two possibilities right there. Either they're lying, they're telling you not true, or they're not doing anything. It happens to everybody. The main thing is, when it happens, how do you recover from it? Can you repair it? If we've not been able to repair this, then we would have been talking about scratching this whole panel with the carving and everything and start again. Because there's no way that you could put it together in grain without seeing it, and that certainly would never fly. We might have been able to come in and cut it and put in a piece and join it right here where the panel raising bit cut, where the joint would be right in here. It'd be in this shadow right here, and it might have hit it. That would have been extremely hard to do though, because we'd have had to know the radius and cut it on that radius inside and out, so that would have been extremely hard to repair. But had this not worked, I would have just scrapped the whole thing and started again. But luckily that worked, and you'd be surprised some of the things that will work when you have an error. And I mean, stuff like that happens, you know. The form that was riding on the bearing that was cutting at that arch, well, it fell down, and then it went up on the bit, and then it let it cut it in there. I mean, that could happen. It could happen anytime. It's happened before. And then, you know, I've been a flush trimming on an end piece like that. Say it have it down to the correct size, and you start in there on that flush trim bit with it, and that thing will chip out and jerk a big hunk out of that wood. Of course, you know, your wood was probably had a crack in it, or there was something wrong with it if it does that. But if you can't see it beforehand, then you don't know it. There you've got a whole door panel with a big hump jerked out of the corner of it where there was a piece of bad wood or something. Of course, if it does that, most likely you can just cut it off, replace it, and start again. But when it gets it up here in the middle, especially on these arches, it's hard to repair unless you get lucky like I did on this one. And then if you go to doing any inlay or any carving, I do some inlays too. I think maybe some of my boxes and stuff I shot a little video or took some pictures of some inlays. And the next project I get where I'm doing some inlay, I'm going to video that. I always find that interesting to watch people do that. I'm sure that people find it interesting, but the next project I get that requires some inlay, I'll video it. But anyhow, I just want to take a minute and talk about that repair. And like I said, everybody makes them, and you've got to recover from them when it happens, whatever it takes. Thanks for watching.